Ladies and gentlemen, the 2017 Brattleboro Union High School Annual Meeting is now in order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. There have been a number of people in our 5 towns who are no longer with us, and let's stay standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. Now, in the way of introductions tonight, I'd like to introduce Ricky Davidson, the chair of the Brattleboro Union High School Board, so he'll introduce the board members. Remember, turn on the microphone, Ricky, when you go to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So to my left, your right, is Bob Woodworth from Brattleboro. And then other board members to my right is Ruth Barton from Dummerston, Lori Cartwright from Brattleboro, Ann Beekman from Putney, Russ Janis from Brattleboro, Ian Torrey from Brattleboro, and then Mike Collier from Vernon.
Thank you. Superintendent Ron Staley, would you please recognize members of the administration and staff of BUHS, Wyndham Regional Career Center, and BAMS?
Yes, Jim. We have Michael Burnett, the director of the Wyndham Regional Career Center, Keith Lyman, principal at Brattleboro Area Middle School, Tom Doughton, the assistant principal at BAMS. We have Steve Perrin, the BUHS principal, Kate Margaitis, assistant principal, and Chris Day, an assistant principal at BUHS. And we have Peg Brown, our special ed coordinator at BUHS. Thank you.
And unless there's any objection from the body, those members of the administration who are not residents of the district will be allowed to speak, since they would bring expertise that otherwise would not be available. So if there's no objection, that will take place. Members of the BUHS Swiss Exchange are out on the lobby selling refreshments. Excuse me, that is the BUHS Swiss Exchange. Tia and Lindsay are the microphone handlers. Wave if you possibly could. When you rise to speak, wait for the microphone handler after I recognize you. Now, just to go over some of the meeting rules, also, we have Adam Belleville from Brattleboro Police as our Sergeant of Arms in the back of the room. Those persons desiring to be part of the district meeting must enter as you have through the main entrance. There's a bathroom on the right, to misquote that old CCR song. Just go through the entrance for the multi-purpose room. All those desiring to vote must have the voter card that you hold up for anything involving a division of the House, or in case of a paper ballot, there are paper ballots on your voter cards. Certain of the district clerks and any BCA members available, I see 2 from my town, will be available to help count in that eventuality. And in addition, voting in all matters by voice, by division of the voters, or by paper ballot. A division shall be had at the moderator discretion or upon demand of 6 or more voters. A vote by paper ballot shall be had among demand of 7 or more voters. Voters who have spoken at least once on the question will not be allowed to speak unless all others have had a chance to speak first, and you will not be allowed to speak more than twice on a pending question. Again, to gain the floor, rise, address the chair, and wave your voter card. We'll have a microphone handler come to you. Then you'll have a chance to state your name and the town you're from. before you start your discussion. Debate will be limited to 5 minutes per person speaking for the first time on any article. On a motion of any voter, the meeting may resolve itself into a committee of the whole on any pending question. We are governed by Robert's Rules of Order, except where Vermont state law is in order, according to Title 16, Section 706J. Unless there's objection from the body, those rules will be reauthorized. Seeing none, those are the meeting rules again this year. We would move now to Article 1, to act on reports of officers. Is there a motion on the floor?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Davidson.
I move that the reports of the district officers be accepted as printed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, the reports of the district officers be accepted as printed. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of passing Article 1 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've passed Article 1. We will have Superintendent Staley come to the microphone for discussion on Article 2.
I'd like to call for nominations for the position of moderator.
Mr. Staley, I would like to nominate Tim Arsenal as moderator for the ensuing year.
We have a second? Yes, Lori? Great, thank you. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, I'd like to have a vote. All in favor of Tim Arsenal as our moderator, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. So in this case, Tim Arsenal will be starting his 18th BUHS annual meeting as moderator. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot has happened in the past year, and I've assumed the role of town clerk in my hometown of Vernon. But I've looked it up. It is not a conflict, and it's my intention to continue to stand for election as BUHS moderator as long as Vernon is part of the district and as long as you'll have me. So again, thank you very much for your support. We move to Article 3, to elect by ballot a clerk for the district. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Davidson.
I nominate Barbara Nowakowski as clerk to serve for the ensuing year.
Do I hear a second? Any further nominations? Seeing none, the motion is that Barbara Nowakowski be elected as clerk to serve for the ensuing year. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. Barbara Nowakowski is elected as clerk for the ensuing year. Article 4, to elect by ballot a treasurer. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Janis.
I'd like to nominate Frank Rucker as treasurer to serve for the ensuing year.
Do we have a second on the motion? Second. Moved and seconded that Frank Rucker be nominated to serve as treasurer for the ensuing year. Any further nominations? Seeing none, we'll go to the motion. All those in favor of Frank Rucker as treasurer for the ensuing year, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. And you have elected Frank Rucker to serve as treasurer. Article number 5, to elect by ballot one auditor to serve for 2 years. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mrs. Cartwright.
I nominate Stephen Lemke as auditor to serve for a period of 2 years.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that Stephen Lemke be nominated as auditor to serve for a period of 2 years. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, the motion is that Stephen Lemke be elected as auditor to serve for a period of 2 years. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've passed Article 5 as presented. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I nominate Marshall Wheelock.
Please allow me to finish reading the article
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
Again, Article 6, to elect by ballot one auditor to serve for 3 years. Is there a motion on the floor? I believe that's Ms. Beekman.
Yes.
Please continue, ma'am.
I nominate Marshall Wheelock as auditor to serve for a period of 3 years.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded that Marshall Wheelock be auditor for a period of 3 years. Any further nominations? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion that Marshall Wheelock serve as auditor for the next 3 years, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. And Marshall Wheelock has been elected as auditor. And by the way, Ms. Beekman, I really appreciate your enthusiasm. We move now to Article 7 to see what salaries Brattleboro Union High School District 6 will vote to pay its officers and directors. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Torrey.
I move that the Brattleboro Union High School District Number 6 be authorized to issue vouchers for the payment of its officers and directors for the ensuing fiscal year in the following amounts. To its clerk, the sum of $200. To its directors, the sum of $2,000 each, except that the chairman shall be paid an additional $1,000 for a total of $19,200.
Do I hear a second? Moved and seconded that Brattleboro Union High School District 6 be authorized to issue vouchers for the payment of its officers and directors for the ensuing fiscal year in the following amounts. To the clerk, the sum of $200. To the directors, the sum of $2,000 each, except that the chair shall be paid an additional $1,000 for a total of $19,200. Discussion on the motion. Gentleman in the middle of the room, please get him a microphone. Coming your way.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Richard DeGray, Brattleboro. On page 34, I was looking at the attendance of our board members, and I must tell you how disappointed I am at looking at one of the board members' attendance. It's somebody I voted for, and I'm deeply disappointed. And I would say this, is that if you don't want to be a board member, then you should resign. You do a disservice to the people who voted for you, and more importantly than the students you represent in this school. And I would also ask the chair of the board that you reconfigure the way that you pay school board members to pay per board meeting versus a lump sum salary. If people don't want to attend, they shouldn't get paid for not attending. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion. Mrs. Cartwright.
Thank you, Ruth. I would suppose that I'm the board member being challenged, and this time last year I thought about making a statement to this body. I did let the board know that I faced a great personal tragedy at the end of last year, and it did affect my attendance. I hope that the board supports my continued position in this role because the children of this district mean a lot to me, and my role on this board means a lot to me. I've been on this board for a fair number of years. Before that, I was on the Brattleboro Town School Board. I feel compelled to let you know that I feel really good about the work that I've done, and I am sure that the professionalism of this board would have called me to task if they felt that I was doing less than the best I could be doing under the circumstances. So I thank you all for hearing me out tonight, and I'll let this body make a decision.
Further discussion on the motion. Seeing none, the motion is that Brattleboro Union High School District 6 be authorized to issue vouchers for the payment of its officers and directors for the ensuing fiscal year in the following amounts: for its clerk, the sum of $200, to its directors, the sum of $2,000 each, except that the chair shall be paid an additional $1,000 for a total of $19,200. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the article as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've passed Article 7. We move to Article number 8, to see if the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $25,359,197, which is the amount the school board has determined to be needed for the ensuing fiscal year. It's estimated this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,349 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 0.0% higher than spending for the current year. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Woodworth.
I move that the school district approve the school board to expend $25,359,197, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,349 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 0.0% higher than spending for the current year. And if there is a second to the motion, I would like to address the article.
There is a second. It's been moved and seconded that the school district approve the school board to expend $25,359,197, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,349 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 0.0% higher than spending for the current year. Mr. Woodworth, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Budget development for the BUHS budget begins in October, when the board sets out parameters for the administrators. And this is the 10th consecutive year we've given the staff the charge to develop a level service and as close to level funding budget as possible. I believe this is the 10th year. Over the last decade, this has been accomplished through innovative deployment of our human resources and a tight rein on discretionary spending. We have made some difficult choices when needed. This budget reflects the same approach. We continue to support innovative programs such as Collegiate High School and our successful STEM and Visual and Performing Arts Academies, as well as our core programs. Every department in all 4 budget areas, that being senior high, BAMS, the Career Center, and district-wide expenses that go across all units, have been reviewed line by line. You will note that one area is growing is the capital improvement maintenance line. We are allocating a little more each year as the facility ages to avoid falling into the deferred maintenance trap. Although our published capital plan, and you can see it on page 11 in the small summary book or page 24 in the big book, gives a 5-year outlook, but we have looked beyond that to the entire lifespan of the facility and are working on a more detailed plan through 2025. So this year we have $350,000 in that line for capital and maintenance work, and will be accomplished within our operating budget. There are no requests for additional capital funding in this budget. Instructional and support expenses are well controlled. Increases in those areas are related to previously negotiated salary contract increases and health insurance. It's difficult to compare this budget's bottom line to our current budget due to the change in the way that special education and other expenses shared amongst district and the supervisory union are accounted for. Page 6 in the small book, or page 10 in the big book, give an appropriation summary for the 3 operating units and show the impact of these changes on the district-wide and overall budget. If we are able to compare apples to apples, it would show that operating expenses to be up about 2% from the current budget, while the cost per equalized student remains the same, as noted in the article in motion. In summary, this budget allows us to meet the educational expectations of the state and our communities at a cost the taxpayers can support and value. The BUHS Board has unanimously approved this budget. We appreciate the efforts of staff and administrators to present a responsible spending plan for the coming year, and we hope you will approve this budget as presented. Thank you.
Further discussion on Article number 8. Wow, a quiet crowd tonight. Seeing there is a person raising his hand over there, please get him a microphone. Coming your way, the other way, Andy. Again, please state your name and town.
Andy Davis here in Brattleboro. You may decide this is better brought up later, but I'll just start asking the question, and that way you could decide as a moderator. Okay?
Okay.
All right. I'm looking at this meeting tonight with a little nostalgia. There's a possibility this is the last time I'll spend Valentine's Day at this meeting. If Act 46 passes later this year, a number of really significant changes will happen. And this particular meeting will not be part of the new process.
I'm thinking that I would like to cover that under other business,
Thank
Article
you.
9.
I'd be happy to raise it then. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Further discussion on Article number 8. In the middle of the room, microphone's coming your way, the other way. Again, please state your name and town and then ask your question.
Elizabeth Ellis from Vernon. And this also might be another thing to discuss later, I'm not sure. But I know that a letter went out from the supervisory union on February 6th to, I believe, every home of every student in the district. And looking at the way we spend money is important to me. And I wondered if somebody could explain how much money that cost for every letter that went out at first class postage, when there are other less expensive ways to communicate. And I also wonder if that amount of money could possibly come out of the budget for the coming year as a way to lessen our budget.
The administration is queried if it so chooses. Mr. Staley.
Yes, I thought it was important that that message of support go to all families. So I think it depends on the school. Many of the elementary schools, I think they either put it in newsletters or sent it out electronically. I'm not sure about BAMS. I think the high school did a mailing. Okay, and the BAMS middle school did a mailing as well. So we're probably talking about 1,200 mailings at, I think, 20 cents, 20 to 30 cents. Bulk rate. I'm sorry?
I will allow you to have the floor for a follow-up once Mr. Staley's finished.
Okay.
So please continue.
So I'm assuming, even though it might be first class, it's a bulk rate. So that's between 20 and 30 cents, I've been told. So we could do the calculations, but, you know, again, I wanted to make sure that every family had that letter. So.
You're allowed one follow-up. So if the microphone can get back to you, please continue.
Yeah, I understand that, and I just want to express my feeling that there are less expensive ways to communicate with the families, especially since I'm sure that this district uses mass communication through telephone and email to their students and families already, which is certainly much less expensive when there's paper cost and employee cost in producing a mailing, which basically was a political message, not an educational message. Thanks.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 8? Mr. DeGray, please wait for a microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Well, thank all the people that came out. It must have been that announcement that I said you might be giving away a free car last night. A question on the capital plan on page 24. And could you go into a little bit more detail on the $77,000 for the athletic field maintenance and the $100,000 on the grandstand equipment storage?
The administration is queried if it so chooses, or the board. Mr. Woodworth.
Those numbers are in place numbers that may possibly change. We did the best we could. The grandstand and equipment storage, we have a serious issue with the baseball grandstand on Tenney Field. It's not safe. We are not able to use it right now, and we have to take a long look and a quick look at what we want to do there. At this point, we know that it's going to cost us some money, and it may end up possibly being more than that. Might be split over 2 years. The $77,000 is in there for pretty much all of that, I believe, is for Natowich Field. Is that correct? Yeah. And that's a 2-year. You can see $73,000 the following year. As you may know, the condition of that field is getting very difficult. The crown is not in the right place, if there is a crown left in it, and we need to do something with that field. These are not numbers that we've gotten quotes from contractors on yet, but that's what our projection is that we need to spend at this point.
That's not an artificial field that you're looking at putting in there.
We are not specifically looking at any type of field at this point, but we need to do something to make that field smoother and safer. And at the same time, we're also going to be putting up the new goalposts, which we already have. And so that would be part of the project that's, we've already made that expense, but would be part of the project to install the new goalposts.
On page 25, in the Student Activity Fund, I'm looking here at the cheerleaders line item. I don't believe we have cheerleaders, and yet there's an increase in the line item, and just wondering why there is money in that line item at all if we don't have cheerleaders. And it increased. Well, anybody up there can answer the question. It's
Either the board or the administration is queried.
Well, I'm the head cheerleader for BUHS, but I don't get paid.
Well, obviously you're overpaid because you're not doing a good enough job.
Well, I don't have the outfit. I do not know why that one is still in there. Is there anybody in the administration that...
Mr. Perrin will answer the question. Could we bring the other microphone his way, please?
So for several years, we've had an on and off relationship with cheerleading as a sport here. And it's a sport that we do want to support. And as we look to budget that sport, we do it in the hope that we'll have somebody step forward who wants to take over the program, somebody who wants to bring it back to BUHS. So it's in there hoping that somebody wants to do that again. At this point with cheerleading, in the last iteration, cheerleading became more than just people like Mr. Woodworth on the sideline with pom-poms. It actually became an athletic endeavor, not that you're not an athlete. And part of that endeavor involved having new mats and having new, safer mats for the cheerleaders to practice on. So rather than them just coming to games, the hope would be that they would go to competitions around the area.
So you felt compelled, even though you don't have cheerleaders, to raise the level of money up for something that's non-existing.
It hasn't existed for 2 years, but as I said earlier, it's had an on and off relationship here.
So you have $2,000 in there for this year, you don't have cheerleaders. So the question I'm asking, why did you feel compelled to raise it up to $3,000 for next year when you don't have any cheerleaders this year?
Because in our feeder programs, we do have cheerleaders among our younger people in the community, and some of them may want to do that as a sport. So I want to support that. I want to support that possibility.
Mr. DeGray, your initial 5 minutes is up unless you have anything else.
Well, I'm querying the board on some questions on
Thi-
the budget.
this is-
At least, I'm not talking about stuff that's not pertinent to the.
True, I will allow you, but remember the meeting rules. There is a time limit. I will give you an additional 2 minutes to make up for what the board has taken in their responses.
Well, then I'll just make a comment here on pages 16, 18, and 19. When I look at salary increases and I see 6 to 10% increases in salaries, I'd like you to explain that to me. And then on page 46, I'd like somebody from the administration to talk about the proficiency scores and how we rack up with the state. And it doesn't look like we're doing very well. So those are my 2 remaining questions, and I'll be seated, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. DeGray. The administration can respond if it so chooses. Mr. Staley.
So the average increase for salary is about a 2.5% increase. Anytime you see a higher percentage, it's typically from somebody on the top end of the salary scale that will go to the penultimate step, the last step of the salary. So there is a big jump in that. I think it's believed to be like step 14 to step 15 when you make that jump. So that's probably what's reflective in some of those sections where you have veteran staff. But the average is 2.5%.
And there was another question there. If the board wanted to respond, Mr. Perrin, please, somebody give him a microphone.
So this year will be our second year of implementing the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium assessments. Those assessments are unlike any other ones that we've done in the past. The test itself is done online, which is a new endeavor for our students. In the past, they've taken paper, they've done essays and booklets and handed those in. The online format presents some challenges for our students. We've spent some time with our juniors and last year and our juniors this year working with them on the actual interface, how to use that. It's surprising that it's difficult to use a calculator that's embedded on a screen. And so we're working on that. We didn't do as well as we hoped last year. And as part of that, we've taken a look at our math program. This year, we've invested in what's called Big Ideas Algebra, which has an online as well as face-to-face component, hoping to help our students become more and more familiar with that dual delivery system. Same thing next year, we've put in for this year something called Big Ideas Geometry, which does the same thing. The plan and the hope there is that that will help our math scores increase. We're not putting it all in technology. We're also looking at those textbooks which are more closely aligned, not necessarily to content, but to the skills that we want our students to actually demonstrate when they get to that test. English language arts, the same thing. The format's a little bit offsetting and off-putting to students. On one side, you have a screen that scrolls a section of dialogue. You're required as part of that to go through and highlight on the screen. And again, that's something that takes some time to learn. We've done some consulting with other schools around the state to kind of figure out, well, how do they do it? What do they do that helps? We've gotten some good advice from Colchester. We've gotten some good advice from Champlain Valley. And we're hoping to emulate some of those this year as we continue the process. The other thing we've tried to do is create a better testing environment. When we gave the NEASC, or the NECAP tests, and before that the NSRE tests, we would simply take the kids, take them out of class, put them into a room, cancel some classes, have some classes kind of go on without their juniors. What we started to do last year is we've actually dedicated a half day to the juniors, and we kind of feed the juniors lunch. We bring them in, we have them in rooms with 2 teachers with 8 to 10 students to kind of create a more positive, supportive testing environment. And we're going to continue to do that this year.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article number 8? Over there on the far side, the woman with a voter card. Microphone's coming your way, ma'am.
Hi, Mary Ann Gardner from Vernon. I have two sons that have graduated, and so I've been attending these meetings for years, it seems. And I find it interesting that we keep changing the testing over and over. We keep changing how the kids are learning to take the test, yet the test results are never any better. So how do we get them to learn better? How do we get our rates up?
If the administration would care to respond, Dr. Staley?
Unfortunately, those are federal required testing processes, and they've changed over the last 10 years. Steve mentioned the kneecap testing and then the previous test to that. Now we're doing more proficiency-based assessments. I don't know. We have to follow those requirements, unfortunately, and that's what it is. I'd like to say, or I will say, that the SAT scores are very, very good in terms of comparisons. And one thing that we do not report here is the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP exam, which is a nationally ranked test. And so for years, at least the last 10 years, Vermont has scored in the top 3% nationally. So, even though you look at these Vermont scores and say, well, why aren't we getting better? They are at the top nationally in terms of literacy and mathematics. So we're really proud of that.
Further discussion on Article 8. The lady on this side with the voter card up.
Karen Amadon, Vernon. Regarding that letter that was dated February 6th, what line item on what page should I look for that coming out of the budget? Was that part of the district? The return address was from the middle school. I just wondered what we can anticipate for other such messages that appear to be politically motivated.
The administration is queried.
So of that $300 expense, I'm not exactly sure where we would charge it to, but each school, so at the elementary level, Brattleboro Town Schools, and then Vernon, Guilford, Putney, and Dummerston would have their own mailing accounts. So I'm not sure if we can find a line. It's usually in administrative board expenses, but certainly the $300 would be covered in those areas.
Further discussion on Article number 8. This side of the room, gentleman with his hand up. Microphone's coming your way.
I would like to thank the board. I'd like to thank Dr. Staley in particular for sending that letter out, which I think had an important educational message for all the students in this district. And it is very similar to the message that came from our governor. It's very similar to the message that came from the Board of Education of the state. I was very pleased to see that. I think it was a well-spent budget item wherever it appeared, and I would encourage people to continue reading and thinking about that letter because it has important educational implications for all of our children. Thank you.
Could you again state your name and town?
Yes, I'm sorry. Franz Reichsman from Brattleboro.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion on Article number 8. If there's no others who wish to speak, we will recognize you for a second time. Mrs. Gardner?
Mr. Moderator.
Mrs. Barton, excuse me. You have a point of order?
Yes.
You need a microphone, even though you have a lovely voice and I think I can hear you, but the people on TV won't hear you.
It seems as though we're getting a little far afield from the subject of the article.
If that is a point of order, I would say that this is dealing with money in the current budget, and I would give it that latitude, but thank you for your concern. Mrs. Gardner.
Mary Ann Gardner, Vernon. What was in the letter for those of us who don't have children in school anymore? And if it was that important, why didn't it go out to everybody?
The administration is so queried if it chooses.
The letter really spoke to the support that we had received from the Vermont Secretary of Education and the Governor of Vermont related to the immigration policies and the standards in Vermont. I wanted to assure our parents that, and our staff, that we take these issues very seriously, that I don't think it's political. I think it's just to make sure that our families understand, that our students understand, that they have a safe environment to come to school, a very supportive environment. I'm so proud of our staff that welcomes a very diverse student population in this district. In Brattleboro town, when we do climate surveys, students identify between 18 to 22% of students of color. We have students in our elementary and high school that speak over 30 different native languages, and we support those students through our English language learning program. We have a very diverse student population, and my point was just to reinforce the statement from our Secretary of Education and our new governor that we support our students and families. I did send that letter to the Reformer and the Commons. I believe it'll probably be in there. I think I heard today there was something in the Reformer related to other districts supporting their families and letting them know that. So I haven't seen it in our papers, but I'm assuming the community will see it there.
Further discussion on Article number 8. Mr. DeGray, if nobody else will be speaking, I'll recognize you for a second time.
I think it's disappointing when a board member tries to stifle the conversation about the budget. We have kids in high school. We want them to encourage to speak up and ask questions and not just sit there. And so when a board member tries to say that someone is out of order or it's not germane, I find that really disheartening and disappointed by the board.
And for the record, the point of order was considered not well taken by the moderator. Further discussion on Article number 8. Seeing none, the motion is that the school district approve the school board to expend $25,359,197, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,349 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 0.0% higher than spending for the current year. All those in favor of Article 8 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've passed Article 8. Article 9, transacting any other business which can legally come before the meeting. There are several people who have wished that they speak under this. And firstly, I will recognize Mr. Davidson because he has a proclamation or a certificate to give out.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. For those of you that don't know, our superintendent, Dr. Staley, is planning on retiring at the end of this school year. And so, as chair, I'm lucky enough to say a few words. And as I thought about what I was going to say tonight, I started thinking about all of the things that Ron has done over the 15 years that he's been superintendent for the students, the staff, and this board of BUHS number 6. And a lot of things came to my mind, Ron, over that time, starting with the shrinking of the size of the school board from 17 to 9. The World of Difference, which is now the standard diversity class that every 9th grader takes. The whole issue around the kernel, the building project, the collegiate high school, changing the school start time, more laws and standards than anybody here probably wants to remember or think about, as well as recently things like personalized learning plans and proficiency-based graduation standards, and of course Act 46, as well as countless teachers, administrators, and mostly students that have come through these doors and spent time in these buildings. And I want to really recognize your eye on the students. Ron has always kept his eye on the students and what is in the best needs of the students. Whether these changes that I listed come from 1,000 different places and come from a lot of different areas, whether they were your ideas, someone else's good ideas that just needed encouragement and nurturing, or was some law that you needed to implement, you always did so very thoughtfully. From my first meeting of this board in September of 2002, when I first was introduced to the board by you, and you directed me to a seat between Gilbert Ruff and Lynn Coram, I somehow knew that I was put in the right place. I learned more about the board sitting between those two in those meetings than anything. And I also realized really quickly that I was placed there by a master teacher. And I can't thank you enough for that. Thank you doesn't seem to be enough to say for all that you've done for us over the past 15 years, but thank you is going to have to start it at least. So thank you very much.
Mr. Staley, if you'd like to say something, the floor is yours.
I would first like to say this is not fair. Big surprise. I just have to say that I am so blessed to have been working with and continue to work with an amazing administrative team, an incredible staff, a caring staff, a very competent staff in terms of content knowledge, but more importantly, they love kids. So I can't continue this. We have incredible students. I've made it a point of my work to work with certain classes, to be involved, engaged in classes, and that's just allowed me to do a good job and to not just get buried with some of the minutia that happens in this work. I really appreciate our central office staff. Barb Nowakowski couldn't do this work without her, so she deserves a huge applause. Our central office staff, Frank Rucker, is amazing. Lyle Holliday, our curriculum director, along with Paul Smith, our special ed directors, just an incredible team, and it really is a collaborative approach. I'm really proud that Lyle will be in this position as superintendent next year. It's just she's an amazing person, and she will do a great job. So lastly, I'd like to thank the board. It's been a real pleasure working with you as a board, and I know board members come and go. There's been a number of you that have been there the whole time, and the ones that have come on, this is probably one of the most well-functioning school boards that I have worked with in my 40 years of education. So I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Further discussion under Article 9, other business. If she's in the room, I'll recognize Mrs. Cassidy for purposes of a resolution. Okay, make sure she has a microphone.
Thank you, Margaret Cassidy, Putney, along with Nancy Olson from Putney. We propose that the voters at tonight's meeting adopt the following resolution, and the text was on the table there, but I'll read it. for those of you who don't have it in front of you. Resolution of Brattleboro Union High School District's number 6 annual meeting in 2017. Whereas Brattleboro Union High School District number 6 in Brattleboro, Vermont is proud to be a school that values diversity. And whereas nearly 60 million people worldwide are displaced by violence, political strife, or natural disaster and forced to become formal refugees. And whereas millions of additional people worldwide are driven to seek out immigration opportunities for better lives and opportunities for their well-being. And whereas immigration has been the cornerstone of our communities, regions, states, and nations' development throughout our history. And whereas the students and staff at Brattleboro Union High School District 6 have a long and proud tradition of being a community that welcomes immigrants and refugees as new Americans and valued members of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the voters of Brattleboro Union High School District number 6 join our congressional delegation, Senator Leahy, Senator Sanders, and Representative Welch, and Governor Scott in declaring our intention to welcome and protect the rights of immigrants and refugees who seek to come to our school, our state, and our community. Nancy Olson and I have...
Mrs.
Yes.
Cassidy?
Did I just...
If that was a formal motion for the
Yes.
resolution, you need
Stop
to
there.
let people second it, and if they second it, you will be allowed to speak as the mover of the motion. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Mrs. Cassidy, please continue.
Nancy Olson and I each taught at BUHS for more than 30 years. And in that time, hundreds and hundreds of students from many different countries, exchange students, immigrants, both documented and undocumented, and refugees, have attended BUHS. And the school has welcomed them all as they enrich the cultural fabric of our community. Superintendent Staley recently sent an eloquent letter to staff and families to let them know that the district joins the state of Vermont in its commitment to welcoming and supporting all students. While we know that any resolution under Article 9 of this meeting is non-binding on the school board, we believe it's appropriate for the voters of District 6 to add our voices to affirm our collective commitment, and it's in that spirit that we offer this resolution. Thank you.
Further discussion on the resolution offered by Mrs. Cassidy. Right down front here on this side of the room, microphone's coming your way.
Karen Amadon Vernon. I feel that it is inappropriate for the school at this point in the meeting to adopt anything that is political. It is far outside of the realm of what we should be doing, which is talking about the budget and with our current students. Also, let it be known about me personally, I'm the mother of an Asian immigrant. I'm not against immigration. I've been through the long and hard process. However, I feel it is inappropriate to do a resolution like this that really is politically motivated and not necessarily educationally motivated, and it just doesn't belong in this forum. Thank you.
Further discussion on the resolution. Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution offered by Mrs. Cassidy, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. The resolution has been passed. Chair would now recognize Mr. Davis for purposes of discussion under Article 9. Microphone's right in back of you, Randy.
Andy Davis, Brattleboro. As I was saying earlier, and I totally defer to your judgment, Tim, I try to come to this meeting every year. I've been to a lot of them, and I'm noticing with the proposed changes under Act 46, this venue may no longer exist if the articles of merger are finally proposed, accepted by the Department of Education, voted upon, and passed, which is a lot of ifs. But if that comes to be, There will be a lot of significant changes in how we oversee education in this district. A single board of 9 members, similar to this board, will oversee closer to a $50 million budget and not a $25 million budget, covering elementary schools in numerous towns, added to the responsibility of overseeing the high school, the middle school, the career center, not to mention the coming of pre-K education throughout this proposed district. And that represents a doubling of the budget size, a significant increase in the number of towns, buildings, students, age groups, all overseen by a single board, and pulling out of that equation are individual town boards and individual scrutiny by town meetings. This meeting has always been a challenge to get a group of people together, a significant group, to overlook this, and I'm concerned about moving to an informational meeting followed by Australian ballot. So here's my question. Is anyone on this board tonight willing to comment or give hypothetical advice to a future board of this same size tackling such a significant increase of oversight responsibility? Thank you. I'll just take your answers.
Members of the board are so queried. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. I share your concern in the beginning of the Act 46 process, Andy, and as being appointed to the Act 46 committee from the town of Brattleboro, I've been intimately involved in the process that we've gone through so far. And at a recent meeting of Act 46, we did some number crunching, or I did some number crunching as we were going through the process. And one of the things that I'm encouraged by is that each school will have a school-based council or a leadership council within the school, which will also have appointed members from the individual communities that those schools sit in. And in all actuality, not only will there be 9 members of this board, but there will be appointed people as well as faculty, administration, and in cases when it's appropriate, students sitting on those leadership councils making decisions for those schools. So to get to your question, my advice for a board this size would be to use those councils, to use those people that are in those communities, to use their strength, their leadership within their buildings to help make the decisions that the 9 people that may be sitting on that board someday will have to make.
Any other board members care to comment on the question from Mr. Davis? Mr. Torrey.
I don't really have advice for a future board. I hear your concerns as the other member from this body on the Act 46 committee. I've also been involved in that, have similar concerns. My advice is to you. Your concerns are valid. Vote the merger down.
Further discussion under Article 9? In fact, I'll recognize Mr. Janus for a follow-up on that same question.
Thanks. It's a good question, Andy. I've served on both the town board in Brattleboro for a little over 8 years and chaired that for about half of it, and I'm finishing up my 6th year here. And I think that you're right that my advice to the board, and I like Ricky's advice, is that to keep your mind open, that there are a lot of things that you have to learn. Serving on the town board and serving, because the EES, the Head Start, Early Head Start, even during those years came through the town board, and I served on the policy council there, the governing body there. So at those levels, from pre-K and through the policy council, through infants, all the way up through, in Brattleboro's case, 6th grade, there are a lot of different issues and things that are different than at the high school level. The intensity and importance of special education, dealing with family problems, all sorts of things that are very that are particular to the younger age group. Coming to the middle school and to the high school, it's a different set of problems as well, or not necessarily problems, but just issues of how to deal with what comes around. To some degree, it has to do with size, but it has to do with the size of the kids too. That things that you can do with a first, second, or third grader, you wouldn't dare try doing with a seventh, eighth, let alone a junior or senior in high school. The kids are changing and learning, and different sorts of discipline problems, different sorts of mentoring issues, all sorts of things. And so, I do have some concerns about a board looking at from pre-K all the way through, that there are issues that are really broad, and the degree of specialization will diminish. There are some cost savings to come around. I mean, the Southeast Supervisory Union is fairly unique, I think, in the state, in that we've already consolidated a lot of things. I mean, special ed, English as second language was quite a while ago in special ed, and just this year, some of the differences in the budget of the paraeducators now in special ed are part of the supervisory union. So that it gives flexibility, it gives a combination, I think, of both cost savings as well as improved services, which doesn't always happen, but I think it's really happened in those cases. And at another meeting, we could go into those things. So but there is that board. I mean, unless they meet more often than our boards do, which is every other week, and circulate around all the towns and those sorts of things, that board is going to be a little bit more distant, I think. And so it's important for everybody to have an open mind and then take that feedback. And ultimately, I think whichever way it goes, and through all the various things that we've gone through in this district as well, whether you win, you lose on a particular vote, there are gains and there are costs and everything that, given the good-heartedness of the people in these 5 towns in this district, even though there are differences on how to go at things, what we have at the base is the interest in the kids. And I've not served on the Act 46 committee, but one thing I've heard from the 46 committee members and read in the papers is that notion that, our kids aren't just the Brattleboro kids or, another one of the town's kids, but they're our kids, all of our kids. And I think that once the dust settles, whichever way it goes, whatever the form is, that it'll work, because we do have exceptional administrators, we have exceptional teachers, and we have we have citizens, we have people that really care about education and about our kids. So my advice, and I probably run over my 5 minutes, but my
You're
advice
close.
to the board, wow, my timing's good, would be to keep an open heart and an open mind, listen to what other people say, and learn as you go along. It'll be a great learning experience.
Could we have the clerks bring up the numbers of people who've attended the meeting tonight? And in the meantime, I'll recognize the gentleman in the back of the room with his hand up. Wait for the microphone, sir.
Dad Montgomery from Brattleboro. I have a question for the administration, probably for Mr. Rucker. Is there a sense of, since this building was built or rebuilt and a wood-based heater was installed here, how much money the district has saved because of that decision, and how the amount of the difference in the effect on climate change, greenhouse gases, that have been the result of that?
The administration is queried. Mr. Woodworth. Make that Mr. Rucker. Turn on the microphone, please.
So I'm very familiar with the wood energy project developments from another system. I wasn't here in 2003 when this system was installed, but I'm looking up right now the budget for fuel, wood fuel, and we can extrapolate pretty easily because wood chips are about a third of the cost, or maybe even less than that, of oil. So what we're looking at is we actually spent $70,000 in fiscal year 16, the year that we closed, on wood chip. So if you multiply that times 3, what's that? 210,000 would be oil equivalent, and that would be the conventional heating, fuel for many institutions. So the difference of 140,000 times, how many years has it been? I guess it's been more than 12. So 12. So that's 1.4 million, going toward 1.6 million in savings, and it is still a very solid heating plant. Robert Clark, the director of maintenance here, has done a great job maintaining the system, and it is part of the capital plan to be sure that we replace the boilers and the major mechanical systems, but it's been a very successful investment.
Further discussion on Article 9. Before we do a motion to adjourn, I will read the numbers, but we'll recognize the gentleman on that far side of the room. Go ahead.
Don McLean, Guilford. I just would like to have entered into the record our appreciation for a wonderful member of the BUHS community who died recently, and that is George Lewis of my town. He was chair of the English department here for a number of years, and he and his wife Laura, who was a librarian, were tremendously involved with the students in so many ways, including particularly support of the drama program. George also instituted the BUHS to Brattleboro Metropolitan Opera program, which is an amazing program which I drove a few carloads of kids for. And also, when he retired from the school, he continued to serve the school in many ways and the students in the area. And particularly, he was a member of the BUHS board representing Guilford. So I think knowing how much George appreciated propriety, he would like to know that this is entered into the minutes of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion under Article 9, here are your numbers for tonight. From Brattleboro, 8,824 registered voters, 53 of you attended, 0.6%. 0.6%, that's just barely half of 1%. Dummerston, 1,686, 13 attended, 0.77%. Guilford, 1,670 voters on the checklist, 13 in attendance, 0.78%. Putney, 1,846 on the checklist, 5 attending, 0.27%. And Vernon, tonight's hotbed of democracy, 1,824 registered voters, 17 attending, 0.93%. So your totals, out of 15,850 people, 101 of you attended tonight, 0.64%. It's got to be Valentine's Day. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Moderator.
Mrs. Barton.
I move we adjourn.
Here's our second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I declare the meeting adjourned.
Okay. Here we go. What did you have for a number? 87. You always pick 8.